I just don't want you to know I can see through your masks.
War correspondents are journalists that report firsthand from a war zone. In our anti-war correspondence, we're bringing you segments from entertainment such as television and film that cut through the pro-war propaganda. Today's episode comes from one of my favorite film franchises, Star Wars. I grew up watching the original trilogy and continue to be blown away by the subtle and overt messages against empirical nations. Today's scene comes from one of the more recent films, Solo, and it carries the anti-war empire message loud and clear. Also, my buddy Adam from No King But Christ did a fantastic rundown of this scene already. So, with his permission, I'm bringing it to you here. But don't forget to check out the links in the show notes for more of his content. So here's Adam and his take on the scene from Solo.
Anyone remotely interested in science fiction is undoubtedly familiar with the Star Wars franchise, and anyone who is a fan of Star Wars undoubtedly knows about the character of Han Solo. A fan favorite from the very beginning, the gruff smuggler that everyone can't help but cheer for is a science fiction icon who has left an indelible impression on any number of sci-fi fans. So when Disney announced that they would be doing an origin film separate from the main series, there was no shortage of skeptical fans. But I retained my optimism and enjoyed it so much that I saw it twice in theaters, and that's an almost unheard of practice for me. What surprised me most was a series of scenes in the film that I thought were rather bold and, whether intended or not, also rather applicable to the day we find ourselves in. Solo begins on the streets of the planet Corellia, where a young Han and his love interest, Kira, scavenge as orphans in a sort of Dickensian underworld. Han and Kira have been planning their escape for some time, and this night is the night. After a daring escape from the orphanage house, they speed away toward the spaceport in hot pursuit, barely making it there in time. As they make their way to the final gate, bribing their way past security, when tragically Han is able to pass through to safety while Kira is held behind, ruining any chance of escape together. Devastated, Han makes the only available decision that he can think of to get himself off of Corellia, become a free man and return to rescue his love. He joins the Galactic Empire. Now here begins our look into the nature and presence of this new empire, one that is rather early in the Star Wars canon timeline. And it's here that we see some interesting parallels begin to be drawn, at least to my eye. Huddling in despair, Han hears an encouraging voice over the loudspeaker. And after seeing an Imperial recruiting station, he is goaded to be a part of something. Join the Empire, explore new worlds, learn valuable skills, bring order and unity to the galaxy. After entering, he is met with an aloof officer who helps him to join with high hopes of a future as a glorious space pilot. But that is not, of course, what happens. Instead of a glorious space pilot, Han is made an inglorious mud trooper in the Imperial infantry. We are reacquainted with him a few years later in the midst of a scene in the trenches straight out of World War I. But fortunately for us, this muddy scene holds a cinematic treasure. In this scene, we see an exchange between Han and his commanding officer briefing before their next mission.
Attention! In 3 hours, we move out for the southern marshlands. I want an advance party of 10 men.
Great, more mud.
What was that?
Just wondering what our objective is, Lieutenant.
Bring peace and prosperity to the galaxy. Install a regime loyal to the Emperor and eradicate the hostiles.
It's their planet, we're the hostiles.
In this simple exchange, Han echoes sentiments that must surely resonate with decades of infantrymen everywhere. This officer and his vainglory objectives of bringing peace and prosperity to this world, subjugating the existing regime, and fighting those natives who are obviously opposed to such change are shown here clearly in a way that only film can achieve. One need only substitute any number of similar cases of Roman, British, or U.S. conquest throughout history to see the tragedy that they share.
I appreciate Adam letting me use this from his YouTube video series. Make sure you check that out and subscribe the next time you're there.
Just carry this gun.
This has been Anti-War Correspondence from Anarcho-Christian. Subscribe on iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, and YouTube, or wherever you catch your podcasts. Also, visit us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. No King but Christ.
This has been a Pax Libertas Productions podcast.